What is up, guys, and welcome to another Bojanian vlog. How y'all doing? It's me, Hobobo. My hair is a bit of a mess today, but what's new? What's new? Young you, right? That was like my own little saying I just coined there. You is like a female sheep, right? If my 11 plus exams were anything to go by, I remember that one factoid. Well, it's not really a factoid, it's a fact, but what? Anyway, in this entry, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I have kind of written down, right? If there's one thing I recommend you do, right? If you're if you're kind of a more kind of thought, more of a thinker, right? Like myself, and you download stuff all the time, and you're not already doing it, I've made this recommendation many times in my entries, but I highly recommend you write your shit down. Seriously, right? Sometimes even I forget to do this stuff, right? And I've been training myself to write down my thoughts for many years now, right? And I do it pretty well, but sometimes even I forget. I have a thought, right? I'm like, oh my god, that's such a cool thought. Maybe I'll talk about it in one of my vlog entries, but if I don't write it down, I end up kind of forgetting about it, right? If it's really important, then I tend to remember it again, but it's just, it's a useful practice that I recommend you do if you don't do so already, right? But yeah, so as it happens, right? I kind of collect a few ideas that I then come out and do these entries about. But I have a collection of ideas that aren't necessarily linked together, right? Usually, I try to tie my entries together by at least a central theme. And I suppose there is kind of a theme behind what I'm going to talk about, but yeah, but it's kind of an assortment of ideas that I have. So yeah, I unfortunately this entry is not going to have any kind of really centralized topic. Although the one next week will be, right? I'm going to record next week's entry after this entry. That one has a firm topic, but this one doesn't so much, right? But the gist of it is in this entry. So I've been talking about a vibration, which is basically the side of life, I suppose, right? Because vibration is to do with life, right? It's the side of life, spirituality, I guess, as the kind of the envelope in which it goes, right? Is the kind of, it's the one side of life that you can't take, that we can't take to our kind of more left brain dominant brethren and sisters, right? Because to them it's fluff, right? Kind of a thing. Or rather, it's difficult for them to understand because vibration is a very kind of, it's very kind of nebulous, kind of a subject, and also just a facet of life, right? It's not something that you can fix down or label in any kind of really definitive way. This is a smartphone, or this is a human being, this is a Chinese man. Again, I don't know why I keep coming back to my race. But yeah, it's not something like that. It's more to do with things that are intangible, but that you feel, right? And sometimes feelings are difficult to affix labels to, right? Although we try our best, right? But anyway, so I've been talking a lot about that kind of thing, and that generally is the kind of, main theme behind what I talk about in these entries, right? Is this feelings and how they will, and how mastering them, if you will, or coming to understand them in a more holistic and I guess vulnerable way, to pick a word out of the ether, is going to basically do something to your life experience, right? You know, again, it's in the same way that it's difficult to describe, you know, with like complete precision what someone's subjective experience is like. You know, it's equally difficult to kind of like sell like what exactly, like, you know, understanding what vibration is and tapping into your sensitivity and energetic sensitivity and all that stuff, like what that is actually going to do for you, because it may not do anything explicit, right? It may not change your life circumstances to such a drastic degree that you can be like, aha, that was the missing ingredient. Like it's not so simple as that, right? It's more, maybe your external reality won't change that much, right? At least not straight away, but what it will do is to make you feel better, or even if it doesn't make you feel better per se, it will kind of give you like a sense of like closure and grounding, like whereas once you may have been like confused and depressed and feeling like you're trapped or without direction in life, like understanding how you feel, you know, whether that be feeling crappy or, you know, whatever it might be, negativity tends to be the one that opens the door to us to, you know, for this kind of thing. But like, yeah, you know, at least it gives you like a platform, you know, from which to kind of handle this aspect of life, you know, the whole kind of like feeling side of life, right? The quality of your life. So I've been talking a lot about that, like, and everything that's been related to that, like pain, you know, love, and if I you know, if I hazard a guess, like this is probably going to be like the main focus of this vlog channel going into the future. Like I might talk about random shit like I do usually, like infinite and infinitesimal and like you know, random shit that I'm actually going to talk about in this entry, right? But like the general kind of direction of my channel is to talk about sensitivity, really. You know, that's kind of one of my main passion areas of life, right? But anyway, so I have an assortment of ideas that aren't necessarily connected, but the overall theme kind of, I guess, tying these things together is like, again, vibration, you know, and understanding how you feel and stuff like that, right? But like, so I did mention, this is one of the things that I wrote down, and I mentioned that I did an entry about prana before, but unfortunately I think I deleted the footage, and plus it wasn't very... It left something to be desired, that entry, you know, like, I do, from time to time, make an entry, and, like, my entries aren't perfect by, you know, by any means, but, like, sometimes I make entries and I'm like, this just isn't good enough, right? I also did an entry about MBTI and another follow-up that I didn't release because I didn't think it was good enough. It tends to be the case where, like, I talk about specific things, you know, like things like MBTI or like or things that have like a pre-established kind of academic kind of a background to it. Like I tend to not do so well with, because you know, I'm pretty bad when it comes to facts and and giving data and stuff like that, statistics. I'm more of a riffer, right? You know, just sharing my own experiences, kind of a person. But like, but yeah, I made an entry about prana, right? And that also ties into what I'm going to talk about to some extent. So I guess I'll give a bit of an introduction towards that. I hope you're still watching. If you are, then pause the video, make some hot chocolate or whatever you want. You know, what was it called? Chamomile? Is that what it's called? Tea? I think it is. Yeah, chamomile tea. You know, and just relax, right? And let my random ramblings send you to sleep. Maybe you're fed up of ASMR videos. who could ever be fed up with ASMR videos? I certainly can't, right? But like, if you want something different, then like, yeah, here it is, I guess. All right, well, strap yourself in, or tuck yourself in, as the case may be. But like, so prana, like in the actual entry, I pulled out the Wikipedia and I started reading it. But like, the gist of it is, right, there's many kind of, like, it's the same as like astrology or like any of these other areas, you know, going into kind of depth in terms of like different types of life force energy. So what prana is, in a nutshell, is life force energy, right? It is life force energy. And prana can exist in many forms, right? Again, the Wikipedia would have more information about like the actual nomenclature of like, you know, the differences. But like, so if you're interested, obviously like Wikipedia is a good starting place, or you can just do a search on YouTube. But like, obviously I have to give a disclaimer, like I'm not going to give any kind of rigorous definitions here. I'm just kind of talking in terms of how this idea of prana can be thought about in a more kind of like down to earth, not necessarily down to earth, but like a more pragmatic way, I suppose. Something that's a bit easier to digest, because sometimes, you know, like it's cool, like all of these like things like prana and like the chakras and stuff like that. It's really cool, you know, but like there is an element of like, but it's a bit too cool. Like MBTI is kind of like this, you know. It's like you can get lost in the complexity and like the, you know, the kind of intricacy of the theory, but like it can be difficult to kind of pry yourself away from that and to like apply it to real life, right? But like, not to say there's anything wrong with theory. It's just that like my kind of goal in this entry is to kind of give a more pragmatic summary of like what this idea entails in life. But like, so prana is life force energy, and prana exists in many forms. Like one form of prana is nutrition, right? So this is your traditional nourishment, right? When people talk about nourishment, then they're talking about food, right? Food that you eat, basically. Food that you ingest, digest, and then excrete, maybe, if you don't digest all of it, right? But like, that's one form of prana that you can take in, because prana is life force energy, and food is basically other organisms that you take into yourself. So in essence, you're taking in their life force energy, right? But there are many more forms of prana than that, right? There's like sexuality, for example. That's another common one. Although people don't think of it so much as nourishment, it is a form of pranic nourishment, right? When you have really fulfilling sex, right, or when you gratify yourself sexually, then when you please yourself, oh yeah, like that is also a form of pranic nourishment, right? Yeah, and then another form of pranic nourishment is doing the things that you enjoy, right? This is one that I harp on about a lot, like do what you love, motherfucker, and all this stuff, right? That is actually another form of pranic nourishment, right? Is to do what you are passionate about and love, right? So like, just listing a few examples there, can you see the commonality between those three examples, right? Do you see the commonality? If you do, then good job on you, because the commonality between those three things is how you feel, right? So this is the difference, right? So have you ever, right? I went to school. I went through the whole university thing, you know, the whole kind of like mainstream like education system, and I spent many a time like cramming for exams, for example, right? When I back in my day when I just was super, I didn't care, right? I had friends who like were on top of things all the time, but like I was always just like living in my own world, you know. And when it got close to like the actual exam, I would be like, oh fuck, like I got exams coming up. Sometimes I even still get that feeling. It's really terrible, but like, and then like I would have to spend like a few nights just like sacrificing sleep to study, right? And funnily enough, right, adrenaline keeps you kind of going in those situations, particularly when you're young, right? But like, how do you tend to feel when you've sat the exam and you are at home? Or, well, maybe that's not the best example, again, because of the adrenaline, right? But like, have you ever like just forced yourself? Okay, like, have you ever forced yourself to like? Maybe it's just regular schoolwork, right? Or like whatever it might be. For whatever reason, like because of work reasons or schoolwork reasons, you can't sleep, and so like you have to stay up, right? And you just feel, and it's just like taking your head and smashing it against the wall repeatedly, right? You're just like, I'm so tired, but I got to do this work. I'm so tired, I got to do this work. And it's just like you feel yourself just fucking going into this fucking like hell, basically, right? And let's say you sleep 2 hours total that day and you're just exhausted the next day, right? Okay, so that's example number one, right? Scenario number two is when you start, if for some reason you start like, let's say you bought a new video game, or a new film came out that you've been looking forward to for like a long time, or you're a fan of the franchise or the series or whatever, right? And then you basically pull an all-nighter watching this film or playing this video game, or indeed doing this piece of art, right? Making this piece of art, or like doing something else, right, that you're really into. And let's say you sleep the same amount of time, right, which is 2 hours. But like in the second example, where you're doing something that actually makes you feel like that you're actually excited for, are you as tired? Right? Are you as tired? You know? No, right? But you slept the same amount of time, right? So what gives, right? And this is essentially the malleability of pranic energy. So like, you know, in modern society, right, or in, I guess, modern education, like we're taught that like certain forms of nutrition are mandatory, right? You have to eat, you know, you have to sleep 8 hours a day, you have to do this, you have to do that. And those are great, right? But like, what you can understand from the difference from the contrast of these two examples is that sometimes you can give and take, right? Yes, it is generally a good idea to eat well, to eat healthy. Yes, it is, absolutely. You should do that, right? You should sleep well, right? You should do whatever else that people say that you have to do, right? But the thing is that like sometimes, like you can kind of mix and match things. Like so this goes into another idea that I'm going to talk about next, which is basically how you can use this to better manage your life, right? Because there are times, this is something else I've talked about in the past, right? Or in recent entries, right? I've talked about like fight and love, right? Basically like my message on this channel and the thing that I'm trying to do for myself is to lead a life of what I love, right? Lead a life that I love, basically, right? You know, putting what I love at the forefront of my life, or at least as like the underlying engine, right? And that's great. And the benefits that you get, as I've explained in recent entries, from living a life such as this is like, even though you may have to get off the beaten path and you might have to figure a lot of things out for yourself, and like there will be a lot of uncertainty and self-doubt as you do stuff that isn't tested, and while other people are doing this thing that's already pre-established, and they're like, what are you doing, you know, kind of a thing, and you're like, meh, you know. But the benefit that you have over other people is that like you have a very powerful source of motivation and nourishment, pranic nourishment, because you're doing something that you enjoy, right? You know, it's like, have you heard the phrase, like, you know, it's if you find something that you love as a career, you'll never have to work another day of your life. It's kind of true. Like, not to say like you'll never have to work, but like it won't feel like work really. Like once you've gotten good at what you're doing and you've gotten used to like producing, you know, because you have to produce, right? It's still a career, right? But like but it won't feel like work anymore, right? Because you're being nourished by what you love, right? And so that's great, and like you should take advantage of that, as I try to, you know, like you should take advantage of the fact that like you are doing something you love, and even though you don't feel like doing it all the time, you can find some way of inspiring yourself to make your art or to build your business or whatever it might be, right? So like the key there is to use love and inspiration to kind of guide you, but also to motivate you, right? But of course, there's a caveat to this, right? Which is that like you will not always be in a position where you can tap into love and inspiration, right? Because sometimes you just got to handle the finances, right? Sometimes you just got to handle family matters. Sometimes shit just happens, right? You know that phrase, shit happens, trademark of the world, or whoever first spoke those horrible but true words, right? Shit happens. Shit will happen, right? Or rather, like, there are times when you have to kind of, like, handle other areas of your life to put on your managerial hat and go and do what you need to do in order to buy yourself more time and resources to do what you actually do want to do, right? And so, like, as we go through life, we realize that there are these two separate kind of dimensions to life where, like, sometimes you want to tap into your love and inspiration so that you can put forth your best creative work, right? But then there are other times in life when you need to, when shit hits the fan, or moreover that you need to like focus on other areas of your life, like you need to maintain certain things that maybe are in disrepair, or like, you know, you need to change some things or do a bit of spring cleaning, you know. We all need to take care of ourselves, right? And like handle chores and errands and stuff like that. And as such, right, this is something that I realized recently, right? It's like you can actually utilize your, like, you can kind of utilize a different modality or method for both things, right? And let me explain what I mean here, because I kind of just like blurted that out without really explaining what I mean, and it might not be very clear, but like basically, like, I had it in my mind, right? I knew I've known all along, right, that like there are moments when you need to toughen up a bit, right? You just need to like, okay, I need to figure this out. You know, I need to sit down and to figure it out. If I need to work more shifts in my temporary like job, then yes, I need to get more shifts just so I can break even, just so I can save a bit of extra money, just so I have a bit of a safety net in case anything goes wrong. There are moments like that, right? Or someone disagrees with you, what you're trying to do, people criticize you, you know, like, you know, things like that, and like you have to kind of, you have to handle it. You don't have to become like defensive or like violent, you know, or anything like that. Like, you don't have to become like combative, but like you do have to like you do have to kind of like breathe in and do something about it. It's the same thing with exercise, right? You know, like I've talked about exercise many times. You know, exercise is really important, but like the thing about exercise is it's not exactly something that you do because you love it. The funny thing is that you can actually get to a place where you can begin to enjoy exercise, right? When you start to understand the role that it plays in your life. But like the thing is that it's not the same as, you know, lying down in bed, even and watching your favorite show. You know, I mean, even doing your labor of love. There's a reason why they call it labor of love, right? It is still to some degree work at the end of the day. a.k.a. you have to make sure that you do a bit. I talked about this in the previous entry, right? You know, like you do, like to commit to mastery, you have to like do it every day, or as close to every day or every week as you can, right? You have to build consistency. So in those times when it's bottom line time, you need a degree of like, okay, I need to suck it up and handle this, and then later I'll relax, kind of a thing, right? And then of course there's the other side, which is like being inspired and loving and like breathing it in and fully kind of getting into flow and kind of embodying the reason why you're doing this art, making this art or doing this work that you're doing, right? And so there are these two different modalities, I suppose, right? And the thing is, right, that you can burn out or get like depressed, basically. Like that tends to be like the kind of the two results that happen when you go out of equilibrium, right? Like you can work too hard, you can become a bit too like, okay, I need to handle this, and then get too swamped and overwhelmed that you burn out, right? Or you can get to the point where you're like procrastinating too much, and you see your goals slipping away, kind of a feeling, and like you get depressed, right? So, you know, and I've lived, despite of my knowledge of like, you know, okay, there are times when I need to knuckle down, and there are times when I need to get myself inspired, right, and tap into my love, right, which is going to be something I'm talking about in next entry, right, in more detail. But I've also like had this problem of like I get burnt out a lot, and I also get like depressed a lot, right? So what gives, right? And of course, this is something that I don't profess to be an expert in. You know, it's just something I realized recently is like, so like when you have to do stuff, right? When it's time to knuckle down and handle stuff and clean, do some spring cleaning in your life, then like it takes a certain degree of willpower, upfront investment from you, like, or rather like, because you have to kind of like, yeah, you have to kind of build up some willpower to then do that thing and handle it, so that you can then relax later, right? So like in those moments, right, you probably shouldn't be thinking like really stringently about your diet, if that makes sense, right? So what I'm trying to say, right, is another way of saying this, and this is something else I've talked about, is like there's like, and I guess this might be part of the title or it might be in the description, but the difference between sensible and sensitive, right, is really like a nice little way of like differentiating between these two things, right? Is like you have to work. You have to be productive in some way, you know. And of course, like my understanding that I developed for myself, you know, modern education did not teach me this, is the role of productivity is to improve. It is to maintain, right? It isn't necessarily to be busy, right? Because being busy does not necessarily equate being productive, right? And productivity is kind of is distinct from busyness, in the sense that productivity is only done to the extent it needs to be done, right? So it is based on a real need, whereas busyness is just empty working. It's just empty activity, you know. It's like an addictive, sometimes not even addictive. It's like a self kind of harming, I guess. Like, well, maybe it's a bit dramatic, but like melodramatic, but like, you see what I mean? Like productivity, like if you can do what you need to do in less time with less effort, great. That's what productivity is all about, right? But like busyness is the opposite of that. Business is like you have to work hard all the time, even if you're tired and it doesn't make sense. You just have to keep working, right? That's the difference. But so there, you have to work, you know, because you need to make money. You know, you need to you need to maintain your appearance. You know, you need to clean your flats. You need to manage things. You know, you need to manage yourself, right? So that you can keep on living and keep on doing what you want to do, right? But the thing is that you also need to nourish yourself, right? And there are people on both sides of the fence, right? There are people who are like, hustle, 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 hustle. You know, I haven't slept, I haven't slept more than an average of 6 hours a day for the past 4 months. Go me! You know, there are people like that, right? And then there are people who are like, oh yeah, man, what's the rush, man? You know, there's no rush. You're gonna give yourself wrinkles by rushing, man. And maybe, you know, that's a bit of a caricature, obviously. Both of those are a bit of a caricature. But there are people who are like more like the people who are more workaholic, and there are people who are more laid back, right? Basically, right? But like the kind of thing is, right, that we need to balance the need to be productive, but also the need to nourish, right? And I've talked about this in previous entries, like I called it consulting your feelings, or like, you know, and it's like, this is why I don't teach necessarily that you need to like be dogmatic about like, oh, I need to eat healthy. Absolutely. It's like, no, it's okay to eat KFC, you know, if you really need it, right? And that's what I'm saying here is like, you know, let's say you have to work like more shifts at your part-time job, right? You know that you need to eat healthy, because when you don't eat healthy, like, you know, particularly as you get older, right, it drains you of your energy. It makes your body hurt more, like your body aches more when you don't eat like vegetables and stuff like that, you know. And it just floors you, you know. It just kind of takes you out of action, right? If you eat junk and you don't eat any healthy food, right? So you know this, right? But like during the weekend, for example, like when you're like, okay, I need to work more shifts. You know, that's when I need to make the bulk of my money, so I can survive for the remainder of the week, right? You don't necessarily have the resources to be like, okay, I'm also going to eat healthy. Wait, am I saying the right thing here? Okay, I think I may have mixed this up. God damn it. Okay, I may have mixed this up. The thing is, like, what I'm saying could be helpful. It could be helpful, but there is another way. Like, so just take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. I know I'm all over the place. Like, again, I don't really have any central focus on this entry, but like, that's one way of thinking about it, right? So, like, basically, willpower in essence is the opposite of pranic nourishment, if you will, right? When you want to be sensible, you have to, I guess by definition, go against the way that you feel, right? Because you need to make money regardless of how you feel, right? So you need to kind of put your feelings down for a second, and then, like, you know, build up some willpower and go and do that thing, and be sensible, right? And there are, yeah, I kind of got it the other way around. It's weird, but like, because the way that I thought about it was like, apologies for this. The way that I thought about it was like, when I'm working, I should eat healthy, because when I'm working and I eat healthy, it gives me more sustenance. It gives me that extra boost that allows me to burn more willpower, right? Whereas, okay, this makes more sense. Sorry about this. But when you're relaxing / you're doing more creative work, then like you can indulge a bit, because what you're trying to achieve when you're doing creative work is is flow, right? Is to get into flow. But the thing about flow is it's difficult when you're stressed out, right? It's hard to create things when you're stressed out and like, and you're feeling shitty about yourself, you know. And so like, in that sense, or like, yeah, in that sense, like, you know, if you allow yourself to nourish yourself, whatever form that may take, right? It may be escapism. It may be some kind of addictive behavior, right? It might be some kind of, like fast food or masturbation, you know, whatever it might be, right? But like, if you feel it will open you up more, and to get yourself out of this like kind of like Terminator mode that you need to be in when you're working your shifts, right? Then then you should allow yourself to do it, right? I say should. Again, everything I say in these entries is just a guideline, you know, it's just something that I'm trying for myself, and I found to be fairly effective, right? And, like, I have to say that, like, this should all ultimately become more of an intuitive thing anyway, right? Because ultimately that's the kind of thing that the thing is, like, things that are actually going to work tend to be easily internalized, right? So, like, if you find something that is kind of congruent with, like, your experience, then it will click like that, right? So, like, yeah, so should you eat junk food? The general advice is no, right? Because it makes you fat, and, like, like, it robs you of energy, and, like, it's just full of toxins and preservatives and shit. So, like, yeah, logically you probably shouldn't eat that much junk food, right? But the thing is that, like, the role that junk food has, even though it's not the best form of it, is, like, it opens you. It tastes so good, junk food, right? And not necessarily junk food, but food that's, like, not vegetables, you know, food that's not, like, raw food or like, fruit and all of these organic stuff, right? Maybe it's, like, a steak dinner, or, like, a steak and ale pie. That sounds so good, steak and ale pie, you know, or whatever it might be, right? A chocolate bar, right? The way that those foods make you feel, they make you feel joy, right? And so they open you up to, like, the joy of your soul, right? And that state is ideal for when you're trying to make a piece of art, or, like, when you're generally trying to be more creative, right? Whereas, I can't believe I got this wrong, man. Damn it. But, like, whereas when you're trying to do something more productive, right? And you're also indulging, it doesn't help, because, like, you need to be alert, right? And you need to not take things personally, which tends to happen when you've ate KFC, for example. You've eaten KFC and someone just gave you a piece of their mind because you were late on your delivery, or, like, on your assignment, or whatever it might be. Like, it's harder for you to be resourceful in that kind of environment without the help of, like, healthy foods and stuff like that. And, like, that's the thing, though, right? Is that, like, you know, if you do this, this becomes like a thing. This becomes like a strategy that you can use in general to kind of keep yourself maintained, right? Because, like, there is the duality of working and playing, in the sense of, like, doing stuff that you enjoy, right? But and there's, you know, and there's the duality of, like, when life gets serious and when life is a bit more kind of relaxed, right? And, like, this is, like, to me, like, a really good way of balancing those dichotomies, right? Is, like, because before, like, I always thought, like, okay, I just have to eat healthy all the time. But the thing is, like, when you're eating healthy, it introduces stress. Because sometimes, like, you know, this is something, like, you know, I hate admitting this to myself. So I'm sure, like, anyone watching this probably does as well, right? Like, when you're doing something and then you suddenly, like, you get a craving for something, like, you just want a donut or whatever it might be, like a cake, you know, and you just have a craving for it, and, like, you're like, no, I'm going to eat healthy, you know. I had a lot of progress, right? And I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous entry, but, like, this is the whole, like, addiction to productivity, because there is such a thing, an addiction to, like, recreation and escapism, right? I may have mentioned this already, right? But both of those things are addictions. We tend to focus on the being addicted to, like, junk food and escapism and, like, recreation side of things. But believe it or not, what was I talking about before? Like, productivity and business and busyness, right? There is actually an addiction to productivity, right? I'm never going to eat, you know, anything other than raw food for the rest of my life, kind of a mentality. It's like, if that's your path, fair enough, right? But if you're trying to force yourself to do that, then, again, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but, like, you know, no, like, you're not going to die, basically. You're not going to keel over. The world is not going to end if you have one donut. you know, it may not make you feel terrific, but like if you just own the decision and you're just like, I'm gonna eat this donut, and that's it. You know, do you have that little faith in yourself? Like, this is me being like abrasive, right? Do you have that little faith in yourself that you can't even trust yourself, your own body, that it will be satiated after one donut? Because believe me, those fucking things are sugary. They are saccharine as fuck, right? So like, you will eat that one donut, right? And then own it and move on, right? Can you feel the resistance? Because I can feel it, right? The resistance of like, but donuts are fattening, and like I'm a man as well. Like I can't really begin to imagine what it's like for a woman, right? You know, for you guys, like, you have to watch this thing more closely. You know, just that's what I think, right? But like, what I believe. But like, anyway, random comment aside, like, yeah, you know, you see what I'm saying? Right? It's like, the bottom line is resistance is not, or suppression. I've talked about this. I talked about this in the previous entry, right? I said how suppression is bad. It's a tactic at the end of the day. It's not like bad or good per se, but like, generally speaking, suppression is very like messy. Like, you know, like, if you're relying on suppression to keep you away from certain things, you know, it's like, I'm not gonna eat this donut. Like, it tends to not work in your favor at the end of the day. If you can make it work, brilliant. You know, and that's probably what you're trying to aim for, right? The goal is not to like rule out anything, like rule out suppression or rule out or rule out the opposite of suppression, which is indulgence, right? Overindulgence. Rather, it is getting to a place where you are doing what exactly you need to do, right? If you need to eat that donut because you're feeling drained and you just worked like a fucking 10-hour shift, go ahead. You know, just don't eat the donut the rest of the days. You won't have to because you're not. Wait, I'm getting this wrong again. But okay, the thing is, like, you can try both out. You can try like relaxing a bit when you're working, or getting more tightening up when you're not working. It's like, it's not a. I guess this is me trying to cover up for my mistake, if you will, right? But you know, granted, I made a mistake, right? Like, it's also like it's open for you to try, right? It's open for you to try. So I believe that is pretty much that for that point. That was a big one. I was actually going to make that one its own entry, but again, just thought I'd kind of wrap all of these together and bundle them, and talk about them together. But 1 second. I'll see if there's anything else I want to talk about. Otherwise, I'm going to end this entry. Okay. All right. Okay, there's 2 more things I could talk about. Right, so again, this entry is all over the place. Like, there's no kind of underlying thing. Again, the closest thing is, like, you know, learning to be more sensitive, I guess. You know, because obviously, you know, based on what I just said, like, sensitivity is not the end all, the be all and end all, right? You still, like I said, sensible and sensitive, right? You have to be to a degree sensible. You know, you can't just be too like emotional, like to not to mince words here. You know, basically, like the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being sensitive and emotional. I am sensitive as fuck, right? You know, like. I get upset easily, like, sometimes, you know, when I have to work, and it's just like, I try my best to be optimistic, but, like, I get upset, I get depressed, you know, but the thing is that, like, past a certain point, it's like, okay, am I going to keep crying, or should I just handle this, and then once I've handled it, I can do more of what I love, and at the end of the day, and you realize it's not even that bad, you know, it's just like, okay, I just need to, like, hold my breath for, like, 2 days, while I work over the weekend and make some money, and then the rest of the week I don't have to work, you know, I can work on things I actually want to do, you know, so, like, you have to have a degree of, you need to be able to take care of yourself, you know, I don't know what to say about, like, well, or rather, let me say it like this, like, you will get there, You know, even if you are a sensitive soul like myself, like you will learn to get there, and it will be a very empowering thing when you get there, because you're like, you don't have to, like, you can, like, trust me, it's like getting into a flow you never thought you could get into, because you're just like, okay, I just have to do this work, right? Yeah, it's like I'd rather sit at home and play piano or whatever it might be, right? Play video games. But the thing is, like, it's just 2 days a week, and if I do these 2 days a week or 3 days a week, then like I can own my own life the rest of the time. It's fucking awesome, right? But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So hopefully, you know, a few ideas for you that might serve you. I hope, you know. But anyway, okay. So the other two things are completely unrelated, really. Yeah, like, I guess this one is somewhat related, right? I wanted to talk about, like, this... I wanted to talk... And this is, like, this was when I was more in a low vibration state, when I came up with this idea. But, like, I wanted to talk about the population problem that we're all facing on the planet, really. And it's really just a rant, you know. Again, I came up with this topic when I was a bit more, you know, in low vibration, but, like... yeah, the bottom line is there's too many people in the world. Too many people, right? And the thing is, there's not a lot we can do about that. You know, are we going to click our fingers and half the world's population is going to go away? No, because they're people. In the same way, I'm a person, right? It's like, you know, so obviously we can't solve things that way, right? And I know that it's kind of controversial, but like, again, it's just a rant, because I don't personally know what to do about this, really. It's just like, what can you do other than like political things, like imposing laws or passing a bill that says you can't have more than a certain number of children? But that doesn't stop people. And this is the thing, right? Is like, God, now that I've opened this fucking Pandora's box, and like, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's an issue, you know. And the thing is, like, I myself, I'm getting older, and I'm just starting very briefly, like, you know, to see, like, the appeal of having children, just briefly, right? Very, very briefly, because I'm getting older, but like, but it still doesn't, like, to me anyway, it still doesn't really, like, give me a reason to have children, per se. Because to me, it's like, children, just, you know, to a lot of people, children are the reason that they live, right? But the thing is that, I don't know, even if I were to have children, right, I wouldn't have more than 2, you know? Because it's just like, everyone's having kids, man. I don't know, like, how is that any different from, like, any other point in history? It's like, people, we wouldn't be here if, like, people didn't have children. But the thing is, like, just like, I just see a lot of people, particularly where I live, right, in London, right, and like, a lot of people, particularly like poorer people, this is the thing, and this sounds judgmental from me, and it probably is, you know, but at the same time, it's just me observing. It's like, there's this, like, people who are more impoverished tend to have more children, right? Because they have really nothing else to do in life, as harsh as that sounds, right? And it's not only my own opinion, you know, but it is my opinion at the same time, you know, is that, like, and you see all of these families, and like, and they have like 3, 4, 5 children, and then those children are gonna need a massive investment from the government, you know. They're going to then come out into the world, you know, most likely with a heap of student debt, and it's just, and like, and they're gonna probably be stuck in some job, you know, or rather, like, they're going to have to fill some job, right? And it's a great thing that there are things like the thing I'm working for right now, like, you know, delivering food, you know, where, like, you can actually earn money if you want to, right? So there's literally no excuse in today's world, unless obviously like, you know, you have no one to support you, and like I'm sure like, you know, there are examples of people who are like really struggling, right? But like if you're like a person and you have a family and like you have an education and you want to work, you can work, right? You can, you know. But the thing is, like, you know, all of these kids are being born nowadays, and like from yeah. Again, I feel kind of bad talking about this because like it's a bit of a downer, and it's like I don't really have anything meaningful to say about it. It's just I just wish, you know, I wish people would try to better themselves first before having children. You know, if you kind of went into having children and you had children, I guess there's not a lot we can do about it, right? But the thing is, like, all of these people having kids now, it's like at least there's a message I want to give to those people, right? And that is that, like, your life will not necessarily get better after having children. If anything, and I know this is very controversial and very harsh of me to say, right? And I do apologize for saying this, but it's, to me, it like, even if it's not the truth, it's something that you have to consider. Like, your life is probably not going to get better after you've had children, right? It's probably not going to get better, right? And like, this rabbit hole goes further and further. You have to ask yourself, right? I guess a lot of people don't really think consciously. They don't really fully weigh up the pros and cons. But then again, like, do most people have that opportunity? Right? You know, people who are watching this probably don't belong to this this demographic, right? But the majority of people, like the general public, most people probably don't think that deeply about what they're doing in life, right? And the same goes for children, right? And if anything, that's one of the things that is like lauded as like one of the targets of being a person, is to have kids. You know, and it's just like I don't know what to say. It's just one of those things that stumps me. It's like, we're facing a population crisis. And if not, and if the effects of that aren't like apparent now, they're going to be apparent within the next few decades, if not within the next 10 years. You know, and it's just like, it's one of those things where I'm like, what the fuck are we gonna do? You know, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, we're just gonna be bursting at the seams, you know. And if that's not going to catalyze some world conflict, you know, I really wish that doesn't happen. You know, I'm someone who's like, I don't deny the possibility of it happening. The world plunging into chaos, you know, and I'm not the only one because I'm not someone who, like, I'm not going to like shut myself off from that possibility, because it might happen, you know. And if it does happen, we're going to have to live with it, right? But the thing is that we're not at that stage yet, and like, maybe there's something that we could do, or at the very least, like, me personally, right? I don't know what this population crisis means for the world, right? But for me personally, I'm just gonna live my life and try and fulfill myself, and try to get myself to a place where I can contribute to the world before I even think about having children, you know. And if that means I miss my opportunity, then I suppose I miss my opportunity, right? But like, I am an open-minded thinker, as I'm sure you are, you know, watching this video. Like, you wouldn't be if you weren't, if you were, or like, rather like, yeah, you would not be, right? I always struggle with fucking double negatives, even though it's like, anyway, yeah, like, you are, basically, I'm sure you are, you know. And so, like, you know, you don't necessarily you don't necessarily subscribe to like what you should do, right? You know, there are communities I've heard of out there where people take care of children that aren't theirs. You know, like, a few people decide like who's gonna have the kid, and then like the rest of the people who don't want to have kids necessarily, they're part of the community and they all take care of the kid. So the kid has multiple parents, right? You know, that might be a possibility, right? One of many, right? So like, I'm not trapped in terms of what possibilities exist, but I just feel a bit worried, concerned for the world, you know, where it's headed. It's like, the people who are least qualified, and I hate that fucking word, but like the least qualified, the least equipped to have children are the ones who are most likely to have them, right? And that's how I legitimately feel, even if it's not politically correct, but that's how I feel. It's like the people who like should not be having children basically are having the most children, and it's just like, I don't know what is going to happen, right? Let's just hope that those kids come out and they're all crystal rainbow indigo children, and they're like the 100th monkey, as it were, and then they finally break out of like, you know, all of this shit. But like, what are the odds, man? There's a reason why they call it the 100th monkey. Even if that one kid in that one family is the 100th monkey, how many of their peers are going to be the 100th monkey? It's like, I don't know. But at the same time, I do have hope, because this exists. This channel, YouTube, the internet, right? And kids are exposed to a lot more than their parents have been. So like, I'm sure that like millennials, you know, even though for some reason people hate on you, I myself am a millennial, even though like I'm kind of like I'm on the cusp, right? I'm kind of like on the very cusp. Like I'm like one of the very first millennials. Like I was born in '88, right? But like everyone hates on millennials, and I'm like, yeah, there are certain things that millennials are set up for that, like, you know, that make them a bit disadvantaged in some ways, right? Like I don't hate on millennials necessarily, right? Because like they are our future. You know, what are you doing? Like, again, I'm being abrasive here, but like, what are you doing that's helping the world, right? Because if you don't do it, the millennials are going to have to do it. And if they don't do it, their kids are going to have to do it, right? So, like, stop deferring is what I really want to say, you know, that the non-PC side of me is like, stop fucking deferring to the next generation and do something in your own life before you fucking even think about having kids, you know? Oh, these kids are going to take care of me. I know that's controversial, but like maybe that's what people are thinking. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to have kids, and like I'm going to take care of them now, and then when they grow up, they're going to take care of me, and they're going to keep me company. It's like, I mean, I don't blame people for thinking that, you know? When I have kids, I'll probably think that, right? Like, you know, like I hope they love me when they grow up, and they don't abandon me, right? Because I'm sure every parent has to go through that fear. But like at the same time, I'm not going to bet everything on children. You know? It's just, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about this. You get a gist of what I'm saying. I'm sure, I'm being presumptuous, but like, maybe you feel the same way. Maybe you don't. In which case, like, you know, good for you. Basically, you have not yet seen the terrors of overpopulation in like cities and, oh God, especially in this place, London. Just like so much influx of people, you know, immigrants and stuff like that, and like they just have they have children, and it's like, I don't know, not, and like whatever. I'm digging myself into a hole here. I'll probably end this here, but like anyway. There is another thing I could talk about, but I think I'll leave it for another entry, because it's kind of really unrelated, and this entry's already long as fuck already. So, ending things off on quite a controversial tone. You know, like, I'm not... yeah, sometimes I get judgmental, right? And I rant in a video, right? But I want to wrap this up with, like... you know, yeah, it's annoying, but, like... I am going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I hope anyone who's watching this, you know, I wish you the best of luck also on your journey. And I wish that everyone in this world gets an opportunity to do what they truly love and to make a contribution, you know, in it. Because the more that we can do that, you know, the more chance that we can stand of, like, digging ourselves out of this mess. You know, it's like, yeah, optimism can be misguided, it can be blind, but I feel that, like, as long as you acknowledge that there is the danger of being blindly optimistic, then that you can then be genuinely optimistic, or rather, like, you understand the role of optimism. The role of optimism is not to block out negativity, right? I know this is controversial what I'm going to say, but this isn't some law of attraction stuff, right? You know, where it's like, you know, you focus on the good stuff and like, yes, I don't disagree with that, but like at the same time, it's like when the bad shit comes, because it will, right? Then you need to. Okay, like I see where law of attraction is coming from, right? So I'm not slandering, you know, I'm not trying to criticize law of attraction. It's just a random example I pulled out of my head, you know, as like on the cuff, but like, if anything, yeah, like I think what my interpretation of law of attraction in terms of like focus on good stuff, focus on what you want to manifest, right? That is absolutely true. I do agree with that, 100%. But there is like a, I guess, like a small print to it in the sense of like, but don't use it to escape what is. Don't use it to escape what exists in this world, right? You know, and be conscious of how you're reacting to that stuff, because you may not be. You may not realize you're judgmental like me. You may not realize you're narcissistic like me, right? And I think it's good to know that about yourself. And don't even sweat it, right? Because like if you're going to find out about it, you're going to find out about it. And once you find out about it, yeah, it hurts, but like you still, but it means, if anything, it empowers you. You know, it empowers you because you know more about yourself. It connects you with like other people more. It does, you know, because you know like how you're appearing to other people. Right, one thing I've always tried to avoid in my life, and I still try to, is like what people think of me. But like, having preemptively, I suppose, like found this out about myself, you know, it at least like it allows me to react more resourcefully when disagreements arise and whatever. But anyway, again, this entry has been all over the place, like I said it would at the very beginning. It's very long as usual, but like. Yeah, so a few ideas in there, you know, hopefully to get a few thoughts going. But if you have watched this far, thank you so much. Yeah. Next week's entry, I'm going to talk about something a bit more focused and a bit more kind of, I guess, hopefully less controversial, you know, but like, so cool. Look forward to it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this. I hope you're having a great day. If you have any comments or suggestions or anything of the sort, if you want to criticize what I've said, leave it in the comment section below. I don't like it, but I don't not welcome it. You know, like I have received my share, and by my share, not very many, but like, you know, my share of negative comments in the past and stuff like that. You know, and like, even though sometimes it does upset me, I do welcome it to an extent, because like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, right? The last thing I want to do is to invalidate the way that you feel, right? Because I don't invalidate the way I feel, so I don't want to invalidate the way that you feel, right? Yes, you know, like if you really feel negatively, then like you feel negatively, right? And yeah, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to apologize, or to, you know, to talk things out, or to whatever, right? Or to ignore it. That's another option, thing. But like, I try my best, like, you know, if there is, let's just say that if you, like, you know, I guess, again, I'm rambling so much now, but like, if you're making comments, then like, as long as if you have something like critical to say, then as long as you know, as long as like, even if you make it like a bit kind of forceful, like, if you make it so that, like, if you make it, I don't know, like, well, own the way that you feel. So just be like, this is how I feel. I feel what you're talking about is absolute garbage. Fair enough, right? And like, if it's just as simple as that, then I'll be like, okay, cool, you know, that's okay. You know, you're free to feel that way. You know, but yeah. Anyway, but if you feel good about what you hear, what you see, God. Then feel free to express that also, you know. Do whatever you want, motherfucker. So cool. Until next time, guys, I hope you'll keep going on your dreams, and look forward to next week's entry. Peace out, guys. I love you. Bye-bye.